Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Nimisha Jadon from School of Studies Environmental Chemistry, Jivaji University, Gwalior. Today we are going to discuss about a module bioremediation or the biodegradation under the paper of environmental biotechnology. The learning objective of this module included the bioremediation process, importance of organism in bioremediation, bioremediation techniques and various biodegradation processes. The global environment is under great stress due to the urbanization and the industrialization as well as the population pressure on the limited natural resources. The problems are compounded by drastic changes that have been taking place in the lifestyle and the habits of the people. The environmental problems are diverse and sometimes specific with reference to time and space. The nature and the magnitude of the problems are even changing and bringing new challenges and creating a constant need for evolving newer and more appropriate technologies. In this context, biotechnology has tremendous potential to cater to the need that hold hope for the environmental protection and the management. While some applications such as for bioremediation are the direct applications of the biotechnology, and there are many which are indirectly beneficial for the environment.
Bioremediation of a contaminated site typically works in one of two ways. In one case, microbes eat and digest organic substances as their food for nutrients and energy. When microbes completely digest chemicals, they change them into water and harmless gases as an end product of clean soil with carbon dioxide, water and cell material. In another case, microbes degrade hazardous organic substances into inert products. This figure shows a simple bioremediation process. In this process, the bacteria generate enzymes that catalyze the degradation reaction, that is, the breakdown of petroleum products like gasoline. Then these microorganisms decomposes the petroleum product into harmless byproducts such as carbon dioxide and water. The problems of environment can be classified into the following subheads, as most of the problems can be traced to one or more of the following either directly or indirectly. Bioremediation process transform hazardous contaminants to non-hazardous products. These wastes are generated from different sectors and processes. For example, waste generation by domestic waste, that includes sewage, wastewater, kitchen waste. Then industrial waste, byproducts and effluents. Agriculture waste, that include materials other than produce or materials left after separation or extraction of produce. Then food waste, that generated by food processing industry, and the wood waste. Then the second one is the use of chemical for various purposes, that included insecticide, pesticides, chemical fertilizers, toxic products and byproducts from chemical industries. And the last one is the over exploitation of natural resources and loss by the conversion to non-recoverable forms interferes with biogeochemical cycles. Waste generation is a side effect of consumption and production activities and tends to increase with economic advance. What is of concern is the increased presence of toxic chemicals such as halogen, aliphatics, aromatics, polychlorinated biphenyls, polycyclic hydrocarbons, etc. in the natural environment. These pollutants may reach air, water or soil and affect environment in several ways. threatening the self-regulating capacity of the biosphere. They may be present in high levels at the point of discharge or may remain low but can be highly toxic. The underground water sources are increasingly becoming contaminated. Some substances may reach environment in small concentrations but may lead subjected to biomagnifications wherein their concentrations increases as they pass through food chain, for example DDT. A number of reasons including our dependence on industries for economy, the extent of damage involved as well as the extent of the area involved makes it difficult to totally prevent such pollution or adopt classical methods to remove the pollutants effectively and economically. There are three main approaches in dealing with contaminated sites. The number one is the identification of the problem. Number two is the assessment of the nature and degree of the hazard. And number third is the choice of remedial action.
Now we discuss here about the importance of microorganism in bioremediation. The microorganisms play a pivotal role in biotechnology, especially in dealing with the environment, though we cannot exclude the use of higher organisms, especially plants and animal cells cultured in biotechnology. The microorganisms are primary fixers of photosynthetic energy and they act as a systems for bringing about chemical changes in almost all type of natural and most synthetic organic molecules. The exploitation of the degradative capacities of microorganisms is the fundamental basis of organic pollutant that by the bioremediation process. The knowledge of physiological characteristics, biochemical capabilities, ecology is an essential prerequisite for successful bioremediation of contaminated sites, irrespective of the nature of the site or the choice of treatment system used. The successful bioremediation in the field requires multidisciplinary approach involving hydrologists, chemical environmental and the agricultural engineered chemist as well as the microbiologist or biochemist. The development and application of cost-effective, efficient and environmentally sound bioremediation technologies depends on the integration of many different disciplines as well as on the advances in our understanding of the physicochemical, biological and ecological factors that govern microbial degradation of organic contaminants both in situ and ex situ conditions.
Here this figure shows the concept of bioremediation by using the plant for the bioremediation process. The number one process in the phytoremediation is the rhizospheric metabolism. In this, plant releases natural substances through its roots supplying nutrients to microorganisms in soils which enhance the degradation. Then the second process is known as stabilization. In this process, the chemical compounds produced for the plants immobilized contaminants rather degraded. Then the third one process is known as accumulation. In the process of accumulation, plant root sorbs the contaminants along with the other nutrients and the waste. And the fourth one process is known as the volatilization or transpiration. In this process, the plants take up the water containing organic contaminants and release contaminants of the air. The main contaminants that we have discussed here is the heavy metals like mercury, selenium, then trichloroethane, polychloroethane and other metabolites. Now we discuss here about the bioremediation technologies. Bioremediation treatment technologies have been broadly divided into two categories based on whether biodegradation is stimulated in situ, that is within the affected environment like soil, sediment, surface water, groundwater, etc., or ex situ, that is the under constant closed condition, that includes the compost pits, bioreactors, etc. The latter usually involve removal of the contaminated material to the place of treatment with increased chances of exposure of the persons involved.
The number one method is the in situ bioremediation techniques. In any natural setting, there is an existing microbial population which is ultimately responsible for the stabilization and treatment of the waste products containing the organic matter. This microbial population consists of a variety of microorganisms which invariably have minimum oxygen and the nutrient requirements. Many of the problems encountered during the handling of the waste materials can be directly related to the insufficient quantities of the two limiting factors, namely oxygen and the available nutrient. When the system is oxygen deficient, oxygen requiring bacteria do not thrive well and they give way to anaerobic bacteria. The natural respiration process of anaerobic bacteria can lead to the generation of volatile organic compounds that are particularly noxious. In addition, the organic compounds, there are the bacteria that function with or without oxygen, and they are known as facultative anaerobes.
This figure shows the in situ bioremediation process. Here we have seen that there are various layers of soil where the mobile flow injection vessels are made up, and so that they are using to transport the passes the air through the contaminated underground site, and this underground aquifers or the soil is continuously aerated by the using of vent, and the microbes are grown in particular area and they remediate the soil or the underground aquifers from the contaminants and release the carbon dioxide and water that is released into the atmosphere by the again with the same pipeline or the vent areas. The natural respiration process of these anaerobes involves the degradation of organic material into carbon dioxide and water. Many treatment systems attempt to encourage the proliferation of these anaerobes in order to break down waste material without generating odors. Some waste treatment systems attempt to encourage the proliferation of aerobic bacteria, thus eliminating the odor from decomposition by mechanically controlling contact of the waste material. Availability of nutrients to the microbial population within the waste material is another limiting factor determining the rate of breakdown of waste. They may be insufficient or may not be readily available. The nutrients which may act as limiting factors for the growth of microorganisms are amino acids, purines, pyrimidines and vitamins. These substances are often referred to as growth factor. By increasing the availability of nutrients to the microbial population in a readily available form, one can essentially control or accelerate the rate at which the microbes break down organic material. Thus, in situ biodegradation involves stimulation of the degradative activities of endogenous microbial populations by the provision of nutrients and or external electron receptors. Another way of enhancing microbial action is by the introduction of competent exogenous microbes with or without nutritional enrichment. This procedure, which is used to enhance microbial activity, is called the bioaugmentation. Nutrients, especially nitrogen and phosphorus, has been tried extensively to treat marine environment and soil or aquifer systems contaminated with hydrocarbons. The nutrients cocktails have been added to marine and coastal environments. The addition of nutrients has also been employed for treating contaminated soils. For soil bioremediation, apart from the addition of nutrients, oxygen is provided through oxygen saturated water, air sparging or bioventing process. Water containing oxygen and nutrients is added to the surface of the contaminated area and allowed to percolate through the soil and mix with the groundwater. Hydrogen peroxide has also been widely used as an alternate oxygen source in the percolation technology. In case of air sparging, air is injected into the water saturated zone of soils and sediments. This procedure of bioventing is aimed at stimulating in situ aerobic degradation of contaminants. For its successful functioning, nutrients are often required to be added and adequate water levels must be present in the unsaturated zone to support microbial degradative activity. Bioventing has been extensively used for in situ remediation of unsaturated soils contaminated by petroleum hydrocarbons. Often, bioventing is combined with another technique called soil vapor extraction for faster remediation of highly contaminated sites. In soil vapor extraction, much higher airflow rates are used to extract volatile hydrocarbons from petroleum contaminated sites. In situ bioremediation under anaerobic conditions may also be enhanced by the provision of electron acceptors such as nitrate or sulfate. Degradation of organic pollutants in anaerobic micro niches in soils, sediments and groundwater environments is known to contribute significantly to overall in situ bioremediation rates. But in situ methanogenic bioremediation has not been studied much. This is the picture of bioventing. In this bioventing process, the oxygen and the nutrients are provided by the vacuum pumps. As the bioventing uses low airflow rate to provide only enough oxygen to sustain the microbial activity and remediates soil contaminants.
The next method is known as ex situ bioremediation technique. These techniques are usually aerobic and involve treatment of contaminated soils or the slurry phase system. The solid phase system include land farming, the soil treatment unit and the compost heaps and engineered biopiles. The land farming involves the plowing, tilling and raking of the contaminated soil on site together with the application of water, nutrients and the microbial inocula if required. The care should be taken to prevent contamination of the groundwater by leachate from the tilled zone. The land from plots have also been used for the remediation ex situ of heavily contaminated petroleum waste, for example, oily lagoons waste. The above ground composting techniques involve physical removal of the contaminated soil or sediments to specially constructed platforms, lined pads or compost sheds. The compost heaps consist of the contaminated soil or the sediments supplemented with composting material like straw, wood chips, etc. in order to enhance water and air holding capacity and improve the physical handling properties. The periodic mixing or turning is applied in order to ensure adequate aeration. In engineered biopiles, aeration is constantly supplied via a network of piles, and the nutrients and the microbial inocula are added if required to compost heaps and biopiles. The composting techniques have used for remediation of highly contaminated sites and have proved successful for the military sites contaminated with explosives such as RDX and tetranitrotoluene and many more explosive substances. The slurry phase bioremediation is a batch treatment technique in which the excavated soils or the sediments are mixed with the water and treated in the reactor vessels or in contained ponds or lagoons. In addition to the provision of adequate aeration and the mixing, nutrients are added together with the surfactants or the dispersants as required. The temperature and the pH are also adjusted to provide optimal and the suitable environment in reactor vessel system. The effective bioremediation has been obtained with a wide range of organic compounds including pesticides, petroleum hydrocarbons, polychlorophenols, polychlorinated biphenyls, cresol, coal tars, wood preservatives, waste and so on.
This is the figure of X2 bioremediation. In this figure, excavated either the aquifers or the soil is transferred to the any bioreactor chamber where the microbial inoculum or nutrients are provided from the outside, and the mixer is used to mix homogeneously this microbial inoculum with the nutrients, and the surface aerator provide the sufficient air for their microbial development, or they are converting a microorganism by taking the nutrients and the contaminants, convert them into a simpler compounds like water and carbon dioxide, and the remaining solid and sludge sediments in settle down at the bottom of this tank, that is removed further for the another chamber. Now we discuss about the factors influencing bioremediation. A number of environmental factors influence in situ bioremediation rates. Some of them can be controlled or modified, while some are difficult to control or modified. The number one factor is the hydrogen ion concentration, that is pH. Majority of bacteria exhibit growth optima at or near neutral pH. Many soils are acidic throughout the world. The treatment commonly known as liming involves addition of finely ground agricultural limestone, calcium carbonate, calcium hydroxide, magnesium carbonate, etc. during tilling and mixing of the upper layers. The treatment may affect solubility, bioavailability and chemical form of the organic pollutant and of soil macro and micronutrients. Fungi are generally more resistant to acidic soils than soil and aquifer bacteria. Increase in soil pH decreases the availability of calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, ammonia, nitrogen and the phosphorus, and the decrease in soil pH also decreases the availability of nitrate and chloride. The second one factor is the temperature. The temperature affects number one bacterial metabolism, then its their growth rates, then the soil matrix, then physical state of the contaminants. Generally, in situ bioremediation is carried out under the mesophilic condition like within the 20 to 40 degrees centigrade. The temperature of compost heaps can be increased by irrigation with heated water. For very cold environment above ground liquid and slurry bioreactors where the temperature can be optimized. The third factor is the water content or geological characters. The water content, especially water availability, influences bioremediation rates. Water in soil or sediments may not be available to microorganisms because it is absorbed to solid substances or tied up as water of hydration to dissolved solutes. This can be solved up by irrigating the contaminated soil, compost heaps and biopiles. In general, in situ degradation rates are enhanced when the soil is granular or porous with a high permeability, complex mineralogy and waterlogged or arid conditions are not favorable. The next factor is the nutrient availability. Nutrients are generally supplemented in both in situ and ex situ bioremediation of soils, ground and surface waters. Nutrients requirement depends on the nature of contaminants and the extent to which polluted site has been subjected to agricultural use. The remediation of petroleum hydrocarbon contaminated sites needs typically nitrogen and the phosphorus. The next factor is the external electron availability. Oxygen is used as an electron acceptor to increase bioremediation activity. A number of aerobic bacteria can break down a variety of aliphatic and aromatic organic compounds of both natural and anthropogenic origin wholly or partially by denitrifying bacteria by sulfate, iron and molybdenum reducers and by methanogenic consortia. Efforts are being made to use anaerobic bacteria for breaking down petroleum contaminated groundwater in oil refinery sites in presence of nitrates. The next factor is bioavailability of pollutants. Anthropogenic organic polymers such as polystyrene, PVC, etc. are highly recalcitrant because of their insolubility and the lack of extracellular microbial enzymes capable of catalyzing depolymerization. However, non-polymer degrading bacteria and actinomycetes are able to degrade oligometric polystyrene fragments and low molecular weight fragments of lignin resulting from fungal attacks on the lignin polymer. Low water solubility and the tendency to absorb to particulate matter in soils and sediments are factors that can severely limit in situ bioremediation. The next factor is co-metabolism. Co-metabolism is a process whereby microorganisms involved in the metabolism of a growth promoting substrate also transform other organic contaminants which can be called as co-substrates which are not growth supporting if these co-substrates are provided as the only source of carbon and energy. This is one of the most important mechanisms involved in the transformation of chlorinated organic aliphatic and aromatic contaminants by microbes. The next factor is gene expression. The ability of indigenous microorganism to degrade organic pollutants is dependent on expression of the genes encoding the required enzymes. These genes may not express if these substances are available in very low concentration. This can be overcome by adding substances that are structurally related to the organic pollutants, which will act as inducers. The next parameter is bioaugmentation, where the degradative microbes do not exist or where the process is too slow. Microbial inoculants may be added to enhance bioremediation rates. This technique is known as bioaugmentation and may involve addition of natural isolates of bacteria or genetically engineered organisms.
Now we discuss about the biodegradation. The biological degradation or the biodegradation is generally considered as a phenomena of biological transformation of organic compound by living organisms, particularly by the microbes. The role of microorganism in the decomposition of sewage and the other organic waste is long known. It has been considered as a natural process in the microbial world as the carbon and the energy source of their growth and for their growth, and takes a pivotal role in the recycling of material in the natural ecosystem. It brings about the changes in the molecular structure of a compound, ultimately yielding simpler mineralization and the comparatively harmless or the non-toxic products like carbon dioxide, water, methane, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, phosphate, and many more. When the compound is not fully broken, it is termed as biotransformation. The many of the recalcitrant substances produced by the biotransformation may sometimes be more toxic than the original compound. The such changes are brought about by the catabolic activity of bacteria or the fungi by their intracellular or the extracellular enzymes secreted in the medium. The biological fate of xenobiotic compounds in the environment can be indicated as shown in the figure.
This figure shows the biological fate of xenobiotic compounds. When the xenobiotic compounds goes under the biological transformation by the three processes like mineralization, accumulation and the polymerization. By these processes, the xenobiotic compounds removed from the contaminated sites. Biosynthetic ability of the living world and the possibility of the degradation by catabolic enzymes evolved parallel but slowly in nature. This has apparently ensured that under suitable conditions all natural organics get decomposed and are not deposited in the environment, with the exception of natural polymers like lignin and soil humus getting degraded very slowly. This has helped microbes to act as scavengers and reduce the pollution load in natural ecosystem. Bioremediation of polluted environment capitalize on the activities of aerobic or anaerobic heterotrophic microbes. Now we discuss in this figure about the biodegradation, that the organic molecule or the inorganic nutrients degraded biodegradable substances that under the suitable condition like optimum pH, temperature and the sufficient amount of the oxygen present there, then the microbes are degraded these organic compounds into the simpler metabolites or carbon dioxide and the water and byproducts like methane, methanol or ethanol. Many of the wastes are generally complex in nature, while a particular strain of a microbe may degrade only one type of compound or its related group. For some chemical substances, the synergistic action of microbial communities or consortia in a polyculture displaying wide range of degradative ability rather than a monoculture is desirable. Sometimes when the degrading materials does not serve as a sole source of carbon and energy, non-growth substance for the organism, but it associated with the another growth substrate, then also it gets biotransformed, and the phenomena is termed as Pseudomonas putida in breaking trichloroethylene. The insecticide parathion is decomposes by co-metabolism of Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Pseudomonas struttzeri. The controlled environment in a laboratory condition with one type of organism acting on a single substrate, however, does not always reflect the real outdoor situation. The factors that affect the biodegradation in situ are temperature, pH, redox potential, availability of nutrients, oxygen supply, biomass of the degrader, competition among microbial communities, and the nature and concentration of the substrates as well. The chemical nature of the compound has also great influence in the process, which is as follows. The number one is aliphatic compounds are degraded more easily than the aromatic ones. Algae and fungi cannot cleave aromatic rings, whereas bacteria can. And the next one is the recalcitrance of a compound increase with increased branching, polymerization, and presence of polycyclic and heterocyclic residues. The next is water soluble compounds are easier to degrade than insoluble forms. Alkenes are easier to degrade than alkanes, while the alkanes are more amenable than the aromatics. The next is for the aromatics, degradability may be influenced by molecular orientation. For example, ortho is degraded first, then the para, and finally the meta orientation degraded last. The next one is the halogen, nitrogen and sulfonate substitutions inhibit biodegradability. Thus, from structural feature of the compound, one may get a rough idea about its biodegradable potential. However, biomethylation may cause problem in natural biodegradation process. Here in this table we have discussed about the some of the microbes which can degrade the various chemicals that included hydrocarbons degraded by the Pseudomonas, Nocardia, and then Arthobacter, Mycobacterium, then PCBs, that is polychlorinated biphenyls, degraded by Pseudomonas, Candida and alkaligens, then the phenolics compound reduced by the Pseudomonas, Flavanobacterium, Trichosporon bacillus, and many more. Then the naphthalene is reduced by the Pseudomonas and Nocardia. Then organophosphates degraded by the Pseudomonas, and the benzene finally degraded by the Mycobacterium or alkaligens species of microorganism.
Now we discuss here about the aerobic and the anaerobic degradation. The microbial degradation or the transformation of the organic compounds may involve either of the two processes of the aerobic, that is oxygen dependent, or the anaerobic situation, that is independent with the oxygen, while in some cases it may lead both conditions to detoxify some xenobiotic compounds. Then we discuss about the aerobic degradation. In the conventional aerobic system, the substrate is used as a source of carbon and energy. It serves as an electron donor, resulting in bacterial growth. The extent of degradation is correlated with the rate of oxygen consumption, as also previously acclimation of the organism in the same substrate. The two enzymes primarily involved in the process are di and monooxygenase. The latter enzyme can act on both the aromatic as well as in aliphatic compounds, while for the former only aromatic compounds can act as a substrate. The another class of enzymes involved in aerobic condition are the peroxidases, which are receiving attention recently for their ability to degrade lignin.
The next is the anaerobic degradation. This process is of widespread occurrence and relief on the metabolic versatility of mixed microbial populations present in soils or sediments when oxygen supply is limited. Growth yield of anaerobic bacteria is extremely low due to low energy yields. It has drawn attention these years due to the possibility of decomposition of extremely recalcitrant xenobiotics through this process. Though the anaerobic process is slow, needs long retention time and produce hydrogen sulfide gas, yet it is more advantageous than the aerobic one due to its non-dependence of oxygen supply. If thus saves the cost of energy for oxygen transfer, materials like cellulose and fats which remain unaffected by the aerobic processes break down under this situation. Three temperature ranges are used in anaerobic degradation included pole degradation at about 20 degrees centigrade, mesophilic digestion at about 20 to 40 degrees centigrade, thermophilic digestion at about 40 to 55 degrees centigrade. The next is sequential degradation. In many cases, both anaerobic and aerobic sequences are combined. This helps in the reduction of toxicity and mineralization of compounds which are otherwise recalcitrant. For example, tetrachloroethylene and tetrachloromethane may be mineralized in sequential steps of anaerobic and aerobic condition, so that initially TCE and the chloroform are formed, which later in aerobic methanogenesis stage are converted into carbon dioxide and water. In such sequential stages, BOD reduction is also taken care of, as is being done in case of wastewater from pulp and paper industries.
Now we discuss about the type of contaminants. The variety of material and the processes used in industrial activities causes different types of contamination in soils. As a rule, the contaminants are not found individually but in simple or the complex mixture. The mixtures may be associated with the release, storage or the transport of many chemicals in surface or the groundwater, waste treatment system, soils or the sediments. The number of chemicals found to date is enormous, and the types of mixtures are similarly countless. The sites are frequently contaminated with the complex mixture of organic compounds such as creosote, petroleum or the combination of industrial solvents.
Now the organic contaminants. Most of the organic chemicals that are found in the soil system are a result of human activities. These include agriculture amendments such as fertilizers, sewage, sludge, pesticides, then atmospheric decomposition such as automobile, power plant, municipal incinerators, paint manufacturing industries and etc. Then oil filled brines like hydrocarbons from petroleum activities, spills etc. Then inert landfill materials that includes foundry, sand waste, municipal incinerator, ash power plant, ash and manufacturing and processing aggregates. Then septic system discharge a large quantity of wastewater into soil. Benzene, toluene, xylene, ethyl benzene and chlorinated organic chemicals are often detected in organic solvents used for commercial and household products. The last one is the inorganic contaminants. The metals such as copper, nickel, zinc and cadmium are often detected in contaminated soil in varying concentration. The toxic effects are observed at high concentration, resulting in the inhibition of metabolic activities of microorganisms. Microorganisms cannot destroy metals, but they can alter the microbial reactivity and mobility. Cyanide contamination results mainly from the disposal of plating bath waste and plating shop waste. In acidic environments, cyanides release toxic hydrogen cyanide. The cyanide ion is a non-specific enzyme inhibitor but exerts its powerful toxic effects by inhibiting the enzyme cytochrome oxidase and thus preventing the uptake of oxygen by living cells. Sulfate contamination mainly results from various human activities with sulfur and its compounds, ranging from acid rain to the disposal of sulfur waste.
So at the end of this module, let us summarize this module. That in this module we have learned about the various bioremediation and the biodegradation process governed by the various types of genetically engineered microbes, and this module describe also about the tremendous potential of the biotechnology to cater to the need of holds hope for environmental protection and the management. It also includes the processes and the steps involved in the bioremediation and degradation of various contaminants like organic and inorganic and the many more. Thank you so much.